So I'm here with William McGrath. He's another disabled parent that we're having on this series. Welcome, William. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
It's a pleasure to be on board.
So just tell me, how has the cut affected you, someone that you support, or an organisation that you run?
So my son is 4 years old. He's vision impaired as a result of having a ultra rare genetic disorder called Joubert syndrome. He's one of only 5 children in New Zealand who've been diagnosed with Joubert syndrome, and he's the only little boy in the country with it. It's a very challenging existence for us as a family, because we're navigating this new world of vision impairment with him. He's non-verbal, so he's unable to communicate with us the way we normally do about the things he's experiencing, the things he desires, and understandably that frustrates him. And these frustrations, unfortunately, come out as meltdowns, screaming, self-harm, and it can be very tiring for us as parents, but it's also not great for him. And the biggest challenge for us as a result of these funding cuts has really been down to not being able to have the flexibility to take that time out as required. We most of our family lives away. Both of my parents are actually deaf and elderly, and they're unable to help us with care. The rest of our family lives well away from us. We all have busy lives, so it's not necessarily easy for us to take some time out. We sort of have to tag team. What we previously had available to us with individualized funding was that ability to say, have a hotel, have a night in a hotel room out of town, so that my wife and I can at least have time for each other. We've not really had much time for each other in the last 4 years, but equally it's that funding also provided us opportunities to take Tobias to experiences where, number one, he wouldn't ordinarily be able to participate, but also to extend himself and desensitize himself to a wide range of stimulus. When vision is 80% of the sensory processing that you take in, and that's taken away from you, all the other senses take over, and that's why you get so frustrated. But it means also that simple things for us, such as sneezing. I can't sneeze without having getting upset. Doing the dishes, sometimes even turning on the tap. I can only imagine what's going on in his mind, but the sound of the tap running infuriates him, even if it's just for a few seconds. So there's no opportunity for my wife and I to obtain a bit of normality.
When I was doing some research for this interview, people described it to me as autism on steroids.
I think that's the best way to describe it. He's not been formally diagnosed with autism. His pediatrician's been he's been very careful with that. He's very reluctant to jump straight into that at such a young age, especially with all the other stuff that goes on with him physiologically. And I think that's a really good way for his pediatrician to help. But of course, that also might mean he's been locked out of various other ways that he could be helped. I don't know. I do appreciate the conservative approaches a pediatrician takes, but at the end of the day, it is everything's on steroids. everything is on steroids. Um, and whilst we can handle some aspects like managing routine for him, we're very good at routine. There's other things that you just, as I say, you can't plan for. Uh, you can't plan to sneeze, especially in the midst of hay fever season. And I get hay fever really bad. Something as simple as a sneeze can set him off. Um, Another example, laughter. Um, we, our family has a great sense of humor. Um, Unfortunately, that results in lots of laughter, and he does not like laughter. It's too loud for him, and so it makes it very hard to uh, poke fun at my two daughters, who, um, bless them, they're brilliant older sisters, but they need time out too, and they need to be able to laugh. They need to be able to cry, and there's no space for them. Um, the funding wasn't very flexible at all. Any opportunity to try and give them some respite was not available. There's no way that they can get a break, even though they're not classed as primary carers for Tobias. They are still carers. They're young carers, and these are the most important years of their life as teenagers, and they're kind of, we often feel guilty as their parents that they're not able to get the attention they need.
So yeah, as an advocate, I've been very vocal, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you online and stuff like that. Um, so what was your wife and your initial reaction in March when the then Minister Penny Simmons, now Louise Upton, made that announcement out of the blue?
My suspicion is my wife. For my wife, it was shock. For me, it was anger, because this was someone who supposedly had lived experience. But when you actually come down to it, this is someone who's got probably got intergenerational wealth. Um, doesn't have to think about doesn't necessarily have to think about where funding comes from for her particular situation. Um, it was just a very holier than thou sort of uh, situation. It was also it the pretense that there was a whole bunch of parents there who were getting massages and pedicures on the government dime, and just doing it for the fun of it, um, compared us to the idea of a doll bludger. And I don't even like that term doll bludger, because at the end of the day, yes, there are people who may abuse the system, but to punish everybody for that is absolutely wrong. It's morally wrong, and that there are better systems that you could put in place for that. Uh, there are things we can do to weed that sort of stuff out, but to punish all disabled people and their carers by completely overhauling basically what they can use their individualized, flexible funding for is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And I was angry, angry.
Yeah. So with that said, then you would say you were appalled at the perception that the minister then thought that the parents were the ones taking advantage, going on holiday, and on and on and on and on.
I take a really simple point of view of this. What's the value proposition of a holiday, uh, a $50 massage, compared to the mental health cost of carers burning out, suffering significant mental health issues to the health system? I would argue, if if the difference between me burning out as a parent and a carer of a young person with a disability is a massage versus, say, uh, an extending my medication and my prescription for anxiety and my counseling think I know which one's more affordable to the government. I think if you are purely looking at this at a capitalist economist point of view, you're putting money back into the economy. I think that's a far more better use of those funds than labeling us as a whole bunch of bludgers and wasting government
Yeah,
funds, which we just don't do.
yeah. So then, did you hold any hope when uh Simmons lost her job and it was taken over by Upton, or did you feel that it would be worse right away? Because we know what came after that.
No, no. I think to be fair, New Zealand is a little bit behind what's happening in the wider world when it comes to uh, disability issues. There are some countries that are doing some great stuff to support um, and look after the needs of uh, disabled people. But we have voted in the most right wing government in recent history, and you only have to look into other countries that have done the same, other countries that have uh, that have decided to elect people who are well known to not give a toss about disabled people. To see that this is a trend around the world. We're becoming more isolationist, and instead of Me Too, it's now it's actually, what about me? How dare they get something that I can't get? It's Equity is seen as that lovely word woke, when it's not about being woke. It's about making sure everybody gets a fair chance, because a lot of us just don't have the access to intergenerational wealth. A lot of us don't have access to all the same. We've all got different barriers in life, but other people have had those barriers removed from them from birth. Others on the other side have them right from birth, and we have no choice in that matter.
I just don't understand how she thought taking away the ministry that we have fought so long for was a good idea.
Blake, this government is an interesting one in the sense that they thought that to save money, we're going to need to dismantle things when that costs money and it wastes the money already invested. Waikaha, it was a young ministry. Um, it had only just got on the runway to to take new directions, to take New Zealand a direction where um, you know, where disabled get to have their voice heard, but not just heard, respected. And instead, they took the runway away and made sure there's a big fat wall at the end of it. So there was no way we're going to take off, right? Um, and they thought that was a way to reduce government spending. Meanwhile, let's give tax cuts to landlords, which we know that's not going to get reinvested. That's not going to get reinvested in our tenants in the country. It's going to disproportionately hurt disabled people more, because we know more disabled people end up having to rent. So it's a government of contradictions. It's a far more right leaning and uncaring one. Yeah.
The thing that really struck me and has struck me on this journey, and I don't know if it's the same for you, was that they chose landlords over disabled people, and I find that appalling.
Hmm. I am a tenant, but I'm also a high income earner. I'm not a very high income earner, but I wouldn't say I'm doing terribly. So I have benefited from tax cuts. But if I had to choose between a tax cut and having more flexibility in terms of funding, having a more caring, uh, having better access to systems and services for disabled people, I know what I'd choose.
Another two sections for you. So first of all, how does it make you feel if you do watch the House, seeing the minister deny that there has been freezes, deny that there has been cuts when there clearly has, and advocates like you and I are seeing it on the front line day to day to day?
This is more standard politics of the last decade. Redirect, and lie. It is just lies, and it's easy to say. It's easy for them to do that because then they can point to mainstream media or woke or there's lots of words they can push out there now that trample on the needs of minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
What
I'm unimpressed.
have you had? I know most people haven't, so I don't expect a good answer to the question. Have you had much consultation with your providers, or have you been able to go to a meeting where the minister has been present?
Um, I have a suspicion that, say, Manawanui, who act on our behalf, have probably had some consultation, but how much how much of that is to their benefit as an organization or to us as a family? Not sure. We're very fortunate that we've got great advocacy in Dr. Rebecca Graham of PVI.
Yes.
For parents of vision impaired, she's been brilliant in advocating on our behalf. Um, and I feel fortunate to be able to join that board to support her with that. We that's something that in the last few years that group has done wonders to support parents in navigating this new world that they end up in. It's it, it's this is a ministry that this is a ministry I think that would prefer to consult at arm's length.
Yeah. And have you had much consultation with the new disability support service?
No, but I have put my feedback into the recent Disability Support Service survey, and I highly encourage, especially all parents of young people with disabilities, to put something through there. And there's lots of information that Afi Nā Matua, Emily Wrights, all those disability advocates have got around how to provide a submission. But I've provided a submission that way. I've contacted my local MP because my local MP, as much as he can be probably a bit of a challenge, he has, he's in cabinet. Surely he can have a chat to Minister Upston about these things. Yeah, I've tried my best. But they have never really made a proactive opportunity. They've never taken a proactive opportunity to contact us.
Just out of interest, who is your local MP?
Andrew Bailey. I'm in the Hunua electorate.
So
One of the things I've highlighted with him, for instance, is the provision of specialist schools in South Auckland. There are 300 places, 300 students on the waiting list who probably have ORS funding, but there are no places in any schools, any specialist schools in South Auckland for them to be able to attend. And as a result, these are students who are either waiting in a mainstream school with very little support, or they're going to fall by the wayside. And with my son turning 5 next year, this is a big deal.
So my final question to you then, Willie, is we're trying to obviously get the minister on this program. So I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to advocate why you think to the minister she should come on this program. The floor is yours.
I believe that it is your duty as a minister to to support and represent your portfolio for the people who are most critical in that portfolio. All of our disabled people are whaikaha mokopuna, are our disabled young people. I'm particularly, I want to know what you're going to do to make sure that our young people have a bright future ahead, where there's no barriers, where they have every opportunity to be able to succeed in life their way, um, without barriers. It's barriers. You're putting up more barriers. So tell me how you are not putting up more barriers by centralizing whaikaha into MSD. Tell me how you're going to reduce the amount of burnout parents experience because they are no longer able to get an adequate amount of respite. Tell me how you can take care of my son. I'd love to see you come and sit down with my son and have a conversation and have a good chuckle without him flipping out. Maybe you can take care of my son for a few hours and understand what it's like to be in our shoes as carers, or maybe stand in the shoes of our whaikaha people. Think about what it's like to not be able to get access to the things you might need because it's subject to arbitrary criteria that help manage a talking point in your budget. Put your money where your mouth is and come join us on the journey rather than do things to us.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. I'll get you to stay there.
Thanks, Blake.